All right. All right. Hello and welcome to the Right Brain Warm-Up, the show that will retrain your brain to be more creative in just 30 minutes. Today we have three incredible guests who are in the social entrepreneur and social change space. They're doing incredible things for Australians across the land. Three guests. So first we'll start with Nick Pearce, who's up the top if you're watching. Nick is the co-founder of Melbourne-based streetwear label and social enterprise Homie, which donates 100% of profits to helping young Aussies experiencing homelessness. And he was co-winner of the Victorian Young Achiever Award in 2017. Thanks for joining us, Nick. And
Thanks
next, no worries. And next we have Tim Hodgson, who's down below Nick there if you're watching. Tim is the CEO of Gotcha4Life, a not-for-profit foundation that funds sustainable educational workshops, training programs and products building the mental fitness in communities across Australia. He was also the Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer of the Invictus Games in Sydney in 2018. So thanks for joining us, Tim.
Thanks, Alex. Good to be here.
And finally, we have Nick too, Nicholas Marchesi, whichever we want to go. Nick is the co-founder of a free mobile laundry service for Aussies experiencing homelessness called Orange Sky Laundry. He and his Orange Sky co-founder Lucas Patchett were Young Australians of the Year in 2016. So thanks for coming on. You guys are all amazing and you're hopefully going to inspire everyone at home to do amazing things too. So what I might do is I always start with this question on each one of these. I might start up with you, Nick Pearce. What is creativity to you?
Yeah, obviously it's a really great question. And I came up with two things for mine. And I guess the first one is expression. And the other being connection. And I think that the great thing about creativity is that there are so many other definitions for it, and obviously, none are right or wrong. So that's my interpretation of it. But I love the fact that people can express things that they couldn't otherwise do through their, whether it's verbal or whatever it is in various forms, and creating connections to other people and insights into things that people wouldn't have ever considered before. So that's kind of how I see it.
It's great. I'm loving how every person answers it completely differently. So it's great. Tim, what's your thoughts on what creativity is?
I think it's for me when you ask that question, I kind of think it's around strategic problem solving, really. And that there are just barriers in front of you, every day that you've just got to find a way around. And they may be in commercial, they may be in operational delivery, they may be in people management, they may be in, what's more commonly thought of as creativity in communication and marketing, and how you do that with emotion. But generally, I find you need creativity in your world, as a leader of a little organization in virtually every sphere of every piece of work that you do throughout the day.
Yeah.
And so I find it's really how do you get through those barriers? How do you find a way through it? How do you have a growth mindset, not to let something sort of knock you back, but find a way through?
Yeah, I've found on a few interviews it's been interesting, people saying they're using creativity to take quite dry or serious messages and bring them to life in a way that people consume nicely. Do you find that similar sort of thing, Nicholas, as well?
For sure. Yeah. For creativity for me, I think on a very selfish and personal note is happiness for me, in a sense of being someone that likes creativity. It's a very happy, non-scary place for me, and a place where I guess I can solve problems. And definitely tapping off what Tim said there, I sort of think that creativity is problem solving for me, probably not in a strategic business sense, but more in building things or overcoming challenges.
And so why did you choose a career in helping people? Because obviously the idea of the Orange Sky Laundry is a super creative way to approach a problem that probably people just don't even think about. How did you decide to just do it?
Yeah, I think it's been like one of those things of evolution. So, in October 2014, Lucas and I were being a bit creative, and we had this idea to put 2 washing machines and 2 dryers in the back of a van. And it wasn't our dream for it to grow to what it is now. It wasn't our dream to become a job. It was purely just a random idea that we thought would be something that could help people that hadn't been done before. And we wanted to put a bit of time and energy and resource behind doing it. So I guess that was the first reason why we started Orange Sky, was to give it a go. And then we sort of washed and dried clothes for a guy by the name of Jordan, our first ever wash. And our first van, Sudsy, broke down a few times, and it was almost like that creative journey you go on where you do something and it breaks, and then you do something and it breaks again. And that happened to us 3 times, but all 3 mornings, a guy by the name of Jordan was there, and he trusted us with his only possessions in his life. And the van sudsy started working perfectly with Jordan's washing. And we realized that morning that Orange Sky had very little to do with washing and drying clothes. It sort of had everything to do with, while the washing was on, sitting down and having a chat. And I guess that's when our creativity blossomed again, is sort of saying that Orange Sky's mission statement of improving hygiene standards was thrown out the door, and our mission statement of positively connecting communities was born. And now we're lucky to do that all around Australia and New Zealand.
It's amazing. I mean, with the connections thing, it's such a big thing at the moment, isn't it? Particularly with, we're all separated like this, but obviously people experiencing homelessness are kind of disconnected all the time. So Nick, is it a similar story with you, how you got into it? Do you just thought, this is a cool idea and let's just try something?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it's such an intuitive process, and then just refining along the way, obviously through the insights and the feedback that you're getting from the people that you're trying to support. As Nick said, I mean, for us, it was very much, let's have a crack at trying to engage, our mates into something that they previously had probably been indifferent to, or, haven't given sort of too much their time, thinking about this issue. And then kind of the engagement in regards to, obviously, clothing was like, it's, streetwear's, a means of expression, and all the rest of it. We could exercise our, creative, juices in regards to designing, a brand that would kind of in turn, obviously, make people feel good about the contribution they're making, but also impact on the lives of people in a meaningful way, as Nick has said. So yeah, it's definitely changed from what was initially kind of a, really trying to ourselves educate and understand a bit about the issue, but also, a way to kind of then, engage people, as I said, that are kind of in my age group, all the rest of it, who, might not have thought about it before or cared about it.
Yeah, I think it's making that change that people have gone, they think they've done something if they like something on social media. It's trying to make that mean a bit more. I think that's a bit more meaningful, isn't it? When people start to engage with it, and that's what they can do with, like, obviously wearing your clothes. They're going to look good, but they also feel good knowing they're doing something positive for the world. Do you think that's a good thing that we probably need more of?
I hope so. And I think, as what Nick's doing, and Tim and everyone, is that you're just trying to find ways, to tap into things that people are already doing or need as such, and, putting obviously your own spin or your own flavour on it. I mean, I think it's ingenious, Nick and Lucas, essentially whacking a washing machine in the back of a van and having a crack. I mean, what could go wrong, what could go right? I mean, look how much stuff has come of that. And the same goes for us in terms of starting a clothing brand. I mean, you've got kind of a rough idea, but once you get out there and kind of, just have that crack and, trial and error, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, it can be from starting that small thing. If you go out there with going, well, I want to dominate the world, you're probably not going to get there. But if you go, I just want to try this, and then you never know. Like I was using Nicholas saying, when things stuff up, you end up being more creative, and you probably come up with even more interesting solutions off the back of it.
For sure. And I think from our perspective as well, what's been really, really interesting is that people want to help. And I think that's the unique thing about what Orange Sky is that Orange Sky isn't Nick and Lucas. It's a community of people all around the world that really believed in us. And I think that's our constant challenge, is how do we build a platform to let people collaborate and be creative and be expressive. And I think some of the best ideas we've had haven't come from the executives of Orange Sky or from anyone. It's actually been from people from all around the world. And whether it be that, our first van we ever built with water tanks on board, our volunteers used to come to heads because no one ever filled it up, and, why don't we fill it up? And, a volunteer one day said, why don't you just drill a hole and put a little tube in there, and you can see how high the water is. And, now every one of our vans has that. Or, the idea of speaking with Jordan and being like, you need a place to sit while the washing's on. And that's our most important thing to our brand, is the 6 orange chairs. So I think those ideas are really, how do you provide a really supportive ecosystem to have the ideas, but also for the ideas not to be the best ideas. And then we've had lots of those, but also how do you resource the good ideas and back them and have the confidence to keep supporting them.
Do you find that same thing, Tim, where you just try things, but then you never know where the next best idea is going to come to get your message out there?
Definitely. I find ideas tend to come at sort of 3 a.m. when you're awake, and you don't put any process behind the sort of ideation. For me, as soon as you try and try and work towards a piece of magic, it tends to get further and further away, doesn't it? But I also agree with Nick that the ideas often come from your community. There's so many people out there. Us not-for-profits are often quite small and tight on resource, which means time constrained, which means quite hard to get to creativity. But if you can sit back and give yourself a little bit of space to listen to the feedback you're getting, I think, from the community around you, the people that you serve, the volunteers that are on board, your champions that are out there, and evolve some spark of a thought that comes into your inbox. I think that's probably where it often comes from.
And how do you find now sort of the day-to-day running of an organisation like Gotcha4Life compared to like Invictus Games, which is obviously all geared towards a big event? Like, do you find that it's a slightly different way of working?
Is it different? Yeah, I mean, Invictus was a one-off and very interesting. It was a fascinating journey. We kind of, my background is in agency world, really, sports marketing, and then a marketing agency that I ran. And I wrote the bid to bring the games there when I was there with a couple of other people. And that was, we never thought it would come to life. But once it did, and we started really tackling the issue, and we'd suddenly got endorsed from the IGF and Kensington Palace in the UK, and we had to deliver it. It was like this crazy countdown. And never have I been, I think, in an organisation that was just absolutely 100% going to succeed. Whatever happened, we were going to make it work.
Did you find that the pressure of the deadline inhibited creativity or helped it flourish?
Probably different times, different. Yeah, sometimes it did and sometimes it didn't. Sometimes the pressure was so much you had to get through the day and move on. And sometimes there was some wonderful creativity around there. Just like now, we've got a brilliant, group of people that throw themselves at you as an organisation and want to help and come with thoughts and ideas too. So it's harnessing that sort of collective ideation process, I guess, a little bit. But it was brilliant. So how's it different? There's less pressure on that sort of end game, the crazy date of an opening ceremony coming and all that sort of stuff. But that said, we put pressure on ourselves by wanting to grow quickly because the issue of mental health is significant, and this year's been so the pressure that sits on us now is that we never needed more than now because of fires and drought and COVID, but a lot of the fundraising or traditional fundraising sources have dried up a little bit for the time being. So how do you overcome that? And you only overcome it by the old cliche of pivoting a little bit, finding new ways, getting through a little phase, going online, all that sort of stuff that we need to do. But I love the similarities around purpose and a culture of people who you work with and on the fringes of the organisation who are just completely 100% committed to doing what we got to do. And that's a lovely place to be.
And Nicholas, how have you found, because you don't have a thing to sell, I guess, how have you found finding ways to fund the amazing stuff that you're doing? Like how do you go about that?
Yeah, I think probably from the evolution, like the Orange Sky in 2014 was a much cheaper organisation to run to what it is today. But I think the similar principles are taken, which is, you need to have something that people engage with. And the currency that Orange Sky operates on isn't Australian or New Zealand dollars, it's trust. And we've got people's only possessions in their life, and they trust us to wash and dry them or to have their dignity in a shower. They trust us with their time. Our volunteers trust us with their time and their safety and the respect of that. And our donors trust us with their money and their support. So I think what we have done over time is really find ways for people to engage in that and support us in that. We haven't got it right all the time. And, for a time like now where our impact is really challenged in our bands going out, how do we continue to get people to buy in and continue to give us that trust when globally hygiene and connection is being challenged? How do we really assure people that we're doing everything we can to look after them?
And how are you doing that? Like all three of you, obviously, what you're doing is trying to raise funds for people who are often forgotten about. They're probably even more forgotten about when we're all worrying about, you know, our own jobs and all that sort of stuff. How are you finding that sort of thing going for you? We'll start with you, Nicholas.
I think it's a balance. We've seen some remarkable support in people jumping on and supporting us, and I think we are seeing empathy at levels, or connectedness at levels that has never been before, and hygiene at levels that's never been before. So, you know, I think every night in Australia, 116,000 people struggle with connection and struggle with hygiene, and now globally, everyone's struggling with that. So I think there's a level of empathy and understanding that is growing, which has been really interesting to observe. I think as well, our donors are hurting, our volunteers are hurting, and our friends are hurting even more than they were when we started. So it's definitely been some real highs and some real lows. And I think how you continue to operate in that space is that you need to find ways to innovate, but also keep your service relative. And, you know, just because we can't operate alongside a church anymore because they're not operating, we've still got a van that's got 2 washers, 2 dryers that can wash and dry clothes anywhere. So we've still got thousands of volunteers that want to go out and help people. So I think it's really on us in the community to solve that, and really hope that now and into the future we can continue to do that.
Is it, all of you, I guess, starting you with Nicholas, does it feel pretty special to know you're actually doing something that's helping society? Because I know a lot of people in their jobs, like for a long time in my career, I was like, what am I doing with my life? Whereas you guys are already at the point where you're like, I'm doing something that's positive for the world. Does that make you feel good as well, to help people? Nicholas?
Is that me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just didn't want to keep on talking, but yeah, absolutely. I think you know, what is really inspiring is every day I'm incredibly proud of the Orange Sky movement, and like I said, Orange Sky's far more than me. It's people all around the world. But I think as well, when you enjoy that and you're proud of it, then something like coronavirus happens and you have to put services on pause for a bit. You're actually saying, well, I know that we can be doing more. And I guess it's that constant balance of growing in a sustainable way. And I think, you know, we really know that what we do or can do is important, but how do we sustain that? How do we keep our staff safe? How do we keep our volunteers engaged? How do we keep our donors engaged? So I think it's that constant balance of, you know, that really nice space between, I guess, uncertainty and fear and certainty.
And Nick, you're doing a lot of nodding up there. I think it's with all that. Yep.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's really easy now to have an excuse to not get out of bed early, and, you know, no one is kind of holding you accountable in a way, I guess, in terms of, you know, when you start and when you finish and all the rest of it. And I guess we're very fortunate to be able to kind of, you know, feel that service and still be able to experience that and have that connection, you know, to the people that we're looking to support to an extent, albeit being differently, whether it's, you know, virtual connection or, as Nick said, or, you know, a revised model in terms of how you have your service delivery. But I think it does really help morale. And I think it's an amazing point made by Nick in regards to that empathy growing. I mean, now people can actually have an insight into what it's like to feel really lonely and kind of, you know, more vulnerable and all the rest of it. So I think that's a really apt point, because, you know, I think you're right. If there's anything to come of this, it is a greater appreciation of what it's like in genuine isolation, and we're being forced to do it, you know, as are these people as well. I think that's the important thing to note, is that a lot of the people who are experiencing homelessness in particular, you know, it's not their fault, just like this is not, you know, our fault, as, you know, to an extent, and we can help each other out. So I thought that was a really, really valuable piece of information you provided.
I remember when we worked on that the homie Tommy Little thing, it was very important to get the language right, that it wasn't Australians who are homeless, it's Australians who are experiencing homelessness, because it is just hopefully a period of time. So you don't want to define people by a label and stuff like that. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, situation, circumstance people can get out of, you know, as Nick would know, and would see it on a daily basis, and as do we with young people as well. So, you know, it certainly shouldn't define someone. You know, it's a spectrum, and there's amazing work being done to alleviate, support it, and try and eradicate it. So, yeah, I think it's such an important part, and it comes back to almost, you know, learning at school around treating others how you want to be treated. There are some simple practices and principles that you can implement that really are the hallmark of, you know, what we stand for at our organisation as well. So in a way, you know, there's a lot of complexity to starting a small business and a social enterprise and a, you know, business of purpose and all the rest of it. But at its core, as Nick said, you know, they're about genuine conversations. For us, it's about providing opportunity to young people. These things are, it's not rocket surgery by any means.
And that connection, Tim, as well, obviously you're all in the mental health space. Given what's happening in the world, I imagine there's going to be a huge uptick in the need of support for people, but at the same time, then there's probably a harder way for you to try and raise funds to fund that. Is that a fair call?
Yeah, I think that is the challenge. It's funny, we talk about prevention through connection. So we're all about trying to prevent instances of poor mental health by enhancing everyone's ability to connect. So you can have mates in your life and that's great, but have you got deep enough friendships and social connections to be able to talk about some of the shit that goes on in your life when it really matters? If something happens in your life and adversity, have you got the emotional muscle to be able to have that conversation? So we do a lot of workshops around building mental fitness, and to date we've been adamant that they remain face-to-face because we feel that's really important. That said, of course, this latest kind of phase we've gone online and they've been brilliant. The programs have been wonderful. So it's, in a sense, it's allowed us to step forwards into an area that we wouldn't have otherwise really jumped into, which in future might allow us to reach more people and grow a bit faster.
But then again, that's that creativity, isn't it? Like the world's changed, so you change with it. Maybe out of it we get something better potentially.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's definitely elements of that, and I think on the connection side, people are connecting more. I mean, undoubtedly. I mean, I'm sure you've all done it, and many people I've spoken to. I've got in touch with so many old mates I haven't spoken to for a long time, because I think you kind of crave those deeper friendships from yesteryear. Those school friendships that are so rock solid, even if you haven't seen them for 10, 20 years, that you just want to have a catch up. And especially, I'm living on the other side of the world to a lot of my sort of childhood mates, so it's just been really nice. And I think what we've got to make sure is that the connection that we talk about now, or the lessons that we learn through this process, we can try and retain once we come out of this, because the chances are we're all going to be pushed to work really hard to make up for lost ground in a month or 2 or 3 or whenever it happens, and we'll enter the same old rat race. Whereas I think we've all learned lessons about what it is to slow down by 10 or 20%, what it is to connect with friends, family, those we've lost touch with, have a good chat, check in properly, have conversations that are more than just how you're going. It's, how are you going? And then you go quiet for a little bit and have a listen. And the important thing is, I think we train our emotional muscle to be able to do that beyond COVID and into, future years, and make sure it becomes a bit of a sustainable cultural change rather than just something that's just happened in a moment of time to get us through a couple of months.
Do you think you've got any idea of any techniques that you might use when we come out of this just to keep that sort of spirit alive?
I think it's actually all on us individually, isn't it? We as Alex, because you helped a bit, launch this concept Co-Live 19 recently, which is all about thinking about how we live together on this planet in a more supportive and protective way moving forwards. And that was about the original concept, which is still going and it's bubbling away nicely. It's reached about 4 million people now, which is great. It was about connecting with 19 different people from your past or present over 9 days and having a good chicken and a proper conversation.
Well, can we just go back there? You just dropped out. We'll just go back to summing up.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
It was about connecting with 19 people over 19 days and having a proper check-in and a proper conversation. And of course, habits take about that long, 19, 20, 21 days to form. So I think we've all got to individually try and consciously form habits in this phase that we're quite enjoying seeing in ourselves and others, and stick to them moving forwards. Otherwise, I think there's an opportunity lost.
Yeah. So Nick Pearce, you thinking the same sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. That whole notion of sort of slowing down, and I always talk a lot about that sort of, stopping and smelling the roses. I mean, now is not a better time to practice gratitude. and obviously newfound empathy as well. So, you just hope that kind of some of the routines that are being built can be applied to, as you say, when we return to a relative norm. But hopefully it is a better world, when we come back, because we have a deeper appreciation of, I think I saw, was it Matthew Richardson was talking about he'd never take for granted having a pint of beer off the, the water at the bar again or whatever it was. But I thought, it's very true. I think we'll come out of this hopefully with this newfound kind of appreciation of life in its entirety, and that rat race that we all are part of, understanding that is one part of us, but the balance is so important, and what a chance to do that now for those of us who are fortunate, but also to look out for others who aren't. So that hopefully this just brings us back to a better place.
I drove over to my mum's on Sunday just to drop off some things for her. And the roads were so empty. It reminds me of when we were kids. Well, you guys probably too young, but they didn't have Sunday shopping on a Sunday, and so that everyone was just being family time. It was pretty great. Like the streets are empty. There's no one in shops spending stuff. Everyone was just probably just taking care of each other, perhaps a little bit more. So at this point, we're gone about half an hour. I might go to the question from the Right Brain Workout, which is, we do this in every episode where we kind of hopefully get people to think creatively and throw something that's a completely insane question and see what comes back. So this question from the book, The Right Brain Workout, is by Brendan Guthrie, who's an advertising creative director and writer, a super nice guy. And the question was, a vampire, a werewolf, and a demon walk into a bar, but the bouncer blocks the door and points to the no dogs allowed sign. How do they talk their way in? So, Nicholas, are you ready to give us your how you talk these guys in?
Yeah, great question. So these dogs and vampires can't talk, so they definitely don't talk their way in, but they point to the mirror store that is next door, and the bouncer looks at that and it says no S-gods allowed in, and then they let them in because they're not dogs.
Love it. Nick, what have you got?
I had twofold. I thought there could be a contentious point in regards to a werewolf, obviously by daytime, it can be obviously human form, so sort of a hybrid, arguing that I might be my evening attire, but obviously by day I'm kind of half Vulcan, half human sort of type, like or alternatively, I was thinking along the lines of the three wise men bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Whether it's these three demigods, what are they bringing to the party? They could offer something pretty interesting, I reckon, or some sort of contraband for the bouncer potentially.
Love it. Thanks for that. And Tim, what have you got?
Well, I thought if I was the vampire or the demon, I would probably put a lead on the werewolf, tie him up outside and walk in anyway.
Could it be your support werewolf, maybe?
That said, our relative states of evil compared to a bouncer, I don't think it'd take too much talking. I think you could probably just walk past.
Awesome. All right, before we leave, we might just ask one more question. What would you say is the most important thing moving forward that people could do creatively and just perhaps for themselves and to help other people? Nicholas, we might start with you.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm such a massive fan of your and Russell's work, because I think it's just giving it a go, and it's as simple as filling out one of those lines or a picture in the book, and exactly the same for Orange Sky. We weren't superheroes or magicians or anything like that. We were just two guys in Brisbane, and still two guys in Brisbane, that put some washing machines at the back of a van and simply gave it a go. And whether that's the first paint on a canvas or the first line in a spreadsheet, I think it's just giving it a go.
I love it. It's so easy for people to do, isn't it? I think it's what people sometimes think it's going to be really hard. You just do little things and you can achieve them. It's awesome. Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nick, that's so on point. I'll just say, in terms of the kindness as such, it's just practicing those small acts as well. So, be holding that door a bit longer for someone who's exiting the cafe at the same time as you, or, that old cliche of, helping the person cross the road, or, public transport, just those little things. And you just feel good when you do them. I think when you do that first one as well, like anything, but really enjoy that feeling as well. So kind of reflect on it, acknowledge it in the time, because it does feel good, and it's okay to feel good about doing something good for someone else as well. So I think just practicing those little things as well can have a huge difference.
Yeah, it's that thing like when you help someone, it's not just yourself that's happy, it's the other person. But also, it's always better to have two or three people happy than one, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's all those little things are wonderful. For me in our space, I think this emotional muscle thing is really important. kind of would love it to see a day where we get rid of the concept of mental health and think of everything as physical. You have a torn hammy or whatever it might be, and you go to a physio, but it's chemicals in the brain, but it's still physical, right? So we've got to think about our emotional muscle and stress that emotional muscle and practice talking about things that are a bit harder to talk about, and checking in with yourself each day to check you're okay, and recognizing if you're not feeling brilliant, what you might do for yourself to help yourself through that day, and being okay with not being okay, but checking in with others too. And, thinking about it as a muscle that you need to stress, mental fitness, or fitness is physical and mental, is something that we need to take more care of, I think, rather than just thinking it's a physical fitness world. So yeah, I think it's taking care of yourself takes care of others. It's almost like the old thing first.
Oh, sorry. Can you just go back? That just dropped out again then.
Well, the concept of putting your oxygen mask on first. Yes. You've got to check in with yourself first. Make sure you're okay, because if you're not, you're no use to anyone else.
Yeah, you shouldn't be afraid to spend a bit of time making 5 minutes on yourself. Will probably make an hour's worth of difference to other people, won't it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's brilliant. Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming on this. I think everyone who's listening to this or watching this will just feel they can do little things to help other people, and that's got to be good for the world. So thanks again for coming on the show. And for everyone else at home, when in doubt, turn to your right side. See you next time.
Good to see you guys.
Cheers, Alex. Cheers, guys.